watching Co-op for Two. I'm here again with Greg.
Thanks for having me on your channel.
And we're going to do our review now of Codenames Duet, which we recorded a playthrough of already, couple.
This is actually a very interesting review, though, because we haven't even opened this.
Yeah, it's all sealed up.
Yeah, so Jesse, you want to tell us what you've done here?
Yeah, I'll be brief because we discussed this in the playthrough as well. But when who's now my wife, but my girlfriend at the time, got excommunicated back to Japan for her birthday, I wrote a Python script to generate a play-on-paper version of Codenames Duet.
Sounds like more of a birthday present for you. That's kind of like, hey honey, I got you this thing that I wanted.
That's how the best birthday presents work. They're really gifts for you.
Interesting.
Just like the special clothing gifts that you give to your wife. Okay, that's neither here nor there. That might have to get edited out. Okay. So anyway, it's almost exactly Codenames Duet, but a version that you can play on paper that generates random word sets, and some changes to make it a little easier to play distance and online, and a little tweak to give you a scoring option.
Yeah, and we're in the midst of the COVID pandemic here. I like that I said COVID because in 2 more years it's going to be like there's another plague. So I don't mean to laugh at that. It just 2020's been
what can you
piling it on that it's only, you can only imagine how much worse. That's actually a term. This is a complete rabbit hole too. There's a term I love, which is you never know what worse luck your bad luck saved you from. It's such a great term. In other words, hey, you think that was bad? Well, if you hadn't been in the hospital for the broken leg, you would have been hit by a car.
Speaking of quotes, right before we turn on the camera, Greg's like, we've got to make this concise. And then this moment it starts, it goes off. But I want to tell you a great quote I heard today watching a new Netflix show called The Ripper. And he said, it's from James Bond. He said, the first time it happens, it's happenstance. The second time, it's coincidence. The third time, it's enemy action.
Yeah, I love that quote, yeah. I didn't realize it was a James Bond. I think that's
what he said.
Yeah,
It might not be.
I don't think that's just... But it's a great quote. I do like that quote. Yeah. So, you know what, actually? I would almost be more tempted to think that was a Sherlock Holmes quote.
Yeah. Oh, but enemy action. That sounds more like James Bond.
But it sounds... Well, anyway.
Which is the best part of the quote. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so... speaking that we're in, you and I played this via Zoom, and it was incredible.
It was made to be played online when you don't even have to see the person. But it's a perfect game for
so the print, and you can find this under the file section.
It's in the file section of Codenames Duet.
Board Game Geek is actually the same thing as Board Game Geek, only they sing it to you. No, but it's great for an airplane too. Just to have this thing.
Yeah.
You should definitely do not just
buy this also.
The game. It's $25. It's really well worth it.
And so you can download a book of 100 games or print more. The source code is there too. It's open source.
This in your carry-on, incredible. Very easy. So brought this with us on a couple. I think I've taken 2 vacations since I've known you. And I think I did bring them on both occasions.
All you need is a pen. No parts, nothing.
2 pens and the paperwork, but yes, right. Other than that, all you need is a pen.
But all credit goes to the game designers, which you pointed out, interestingly enough, is Vlada Shvadl did Codenames alone, and then did Codenames Pictures alone, which is the same game. But then Scott Eaton comes in for the coup de grace, or whatever you call it. Making this a 2-player, brilliant, absolutely brilliant how he managed to do it.
The base game of Codenames, which
explain that really quick.
I just wanted to say that game does have a 2-player version, or team version, where you just try to score the most points. It's pretty lame, honestly, but it is kind of a way where you can enjoy Codenames if you can't play with a group. So this was such a stroke of genius, because there is so many amazing little... It's crazy how much... subtlety and nuances in the game. But no, you go ahead and you explain it.
Let's just describe basic Codenames Duet, which is based largely on the Codenames team game. You've got a bunch of words, and as a team, you're trying to give clues to the other person so they guess the right words that they should guess according to your list. And there's certain words that are sort of mistakes but neutral, just lose you the turn. And there are certain words for each of you that are assassin words or black words that if your partner guesses by accident, you instantly lose the game. And that's the same idea is in Codenames, of certain words that end you the game instantly, which adds a huge amount of tension to the game.
So essentially on a turn of Codenames or Codenames Duet, you're going to say, like, you're going to give a word, just one word. You can say, like, water, 2, and then the person is going to look on their list for 2 words that relate to water. Now, and that's, and you can guess up to that many. If you get it wrong, your
and in regular Codenames, it's the race against the other team that provides the race element. You could take as long as you want as a team, but if the other team gets there quicker. In the cooperative version, you've got a very strict number of turns limit. You've got 9 turns.
And you also can only get 5 things wrong before you lose as well.
That's right.
And then, of course, the assassin, if you get, now it's in the normal Codenames, there's just 1 assassin. In Duet, there's 3, so there is kind of a bit
and
of
there's some very clever overlapping that you can use to take, if you want to think a little deeper.
Real fast, if I may. I always like the idea in games, of that, like, hook, where you have, like, I love explaining a game to somebody and being like, okay, well, this is the game, this is how you play, like, blah, blah, blah. And then I love saying, but the twist is, right? Which is like, we played that QE, yeah. So QE, we played, and it's like...
Quantitative easing is what...
Whoever, it's like, hey, you just bid on things, everybody bids, spends a lot of money, and then at the end of the game, well, whoever has the most wins, but the one player who spent the most money is out. So I always love those little twists that make the game truly interesting. Right. And Vladichalo's done such a cool thing here by saying, look, it's a race against time, but just to make things interesting, there's that one spot on the board, that one word that is the assassin, and it will end the game instantly and lose the game for that team. And that's just the perfect little hook. And we talk about elegance in games quite a bit, about how much we love that, and this game definitely has that.
Wow, yeah.
I mean,
it sure does.
It's such a clean, neat design. It's easy to learn. It has tons of nuance, and it's infinitely replayable. It's just, there's so much, it really is an elegant design, and that little assassin part is such a great little twist.
Yeah, I mean, the elegance of the mechanics and the rules are so nice and clean. And it's also, I mean, it's not a unique game, but as far as word games, and it scratches a real itch in terms of rewarding deep thinking. Like, you're looking at these words, trying to make connections. You're really using your brain to do, you're doing a couple things at the same time. First of all, you're trying to make all these connections, right? But then you're also trying to figure out how to avoid getting certain words, right? And then there's some real strategy different strategies you could use. Like, do I say a clue that's gonna include a word they shouldn't guess just because it's still more efficient for me to do it that way? Is this the right time to give a 1-word clue? Is this the time to risk a 3-word clue? There's some absolutely fascinating gamey strategic decisions, as well as this whole word meaning puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, I like one of the best parts in the game, both as trying to guess the clue as well as give it, is when you think, okay, there's some word I'm going to give clue, but it will include 3 different things, and one of them is an assassin, or one of them is a word that I don't want my partner to guess or my teammate to guess. And it's so cool to say, to take a specific word. So your partner might be like, well, why did they say, like, maybe pluralize a word? Like, why do they say, I'm just going to pick this word, but don't read it to them. But, why would they say hearts rather than heart? Like we had in our game or something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it wasn't actually it was integral in that game, but I mean, just like, sometimes you'll say, like, a very specific word, like, well, why did they say outfit instead of uniform? Why did they say uniform?
Really, it's almost like I mean, you're pointing out something really important. It's like, this is almost like an advanced Codenames strategic thing, but it's fascinating to ask yourself, like, don't just look at that clue and say what's best for that clue. Doing the meta question of, like, why wouldn't, if these 2 things are the things that I think is the answer, would there have been an easier clue? And that tells me it can't be these 2. And there's, that's that little double guessing. It's almost like the Princess Bride of, like, I know that you know that I know. Like, you've given me a clue, but do you know that I know this fact? Or do I just know this fact and you wouldn't have assumed I know this fact, so it can't be that?
Well, some of the things are like, you know, like when you think like round and you're trying to get them to guess like earth and basketball or something, right? That's not really that exciting of a clue to give or to receive, really. Like, it's kind of like, those are like, or like a lot of times you get ones that are like cities, or like city too, and there's like London and Paris there, and you're like, oh, that's obvious.
That's not the fun part.
But like I was kind of like excited. I gave a clue. We just had the game. We had I had hospital and helicopter on mine, so I said airlift, and it's cool because like that the only is those two words. It could not be any other words really on that, right? When you airlift somebody, it's, you know, you could say it's an emergency or something like that, but I mean, you're thinking like, well, an airlift is taking you to the hospital, and it's a helicopter. So specifically 2 words. So I really was like, it was a clue.
But that's where the meta strategy is nice, because there was helicopter, there was fly, and there was hospital.
Oh yeah.
Now, okay, you pick helicopter for airlift, then you say, okay, well, obviously the helicopter has to fly somewhere, but then you ask yourself, well, it has to be 2. So if he was just meant helicopter and fly, he wouldn't have said airlift, he would have said something else. And the fact that it's hospital and helicopter means that fly has to be the odd one out. There's all those little thinking.
Well, I also like when you have to think of the word in 2 different ways, you know, like we had a tier versus a tear, you know, and you can play with that sort of thing, which is like very satisfying, you know, thinking of like, when you start to think, okay, well, this word could be related to this and that, you know what I mean, like to versus the
there's 2 interesting points about that. The first one is it also points out there's a real push your luck element to this game, because you're constantly asking yourself, well, I'd really like to give a 3 clue. Should I push my luck and give this clue that's further away from the meaning and that really pushes them to think about it? But the other thing is that it's really cool to play this game and then have those moments where the person is thinking on a different line of thinking than you are, and you're like, wow, I didn't even consider that. I looked at that and I saw a tier, and maybe they were thinking tear. And that happens quite often, that you're thinking one way and your partner is sort of found a different way, a different route that makes sense to them.
Well, and what's so cool too is that there is so much more to the game than just those clues. For instance, if you're playing the competitive version, in both versions, but especially actually just in the competitive version, where you feel like, okay, look, I have, actually, it does work in both. If you have mistakes that you can make, or if the opponent's team is well ahead of you,
you have to.
You're like, well, you have to go for broke and give many more clues.
And that happens here too, as you're running out of time.
But you have more mistakes that you can make. Well, then you'll open it up, right? And so there's a gaminess there, but there's also quite a bit more in this version, which is, I think, very subtly wonderful that they did this, that this designer Scott Eaton did, because having like. You share, so if you share on the
it's actually here,
words,
you can see the diagram.
Yeah, one of these assassin words is going to be the same as your teammates, excuse me.
Yeah.
One of them is going to be a word that is one of their greens, and one of them is going to be a yellow, right? And so if there's scenarios where you're at the end of the game and you don't know what to guess, and you're thinking, okay, well, I know, like, this one was a yellow, you know what I mean? You can figure it out. Like, we shared this, like Cleopatra was a green word. That means I know one of these is an assassin for them. Like if this was the shared. So it's kind of a cool way to meta it a little bit and think like, okay, well, I don't want them to guess my word, but I also like, if I was thinking like, well, Cleopatra on this list is one of the words that I'm not sure about, and it's related to Jesse's clue. So it's possible it has a heightened, percentage that it will be Jesse's assassin as well. So I'm going to be careful and not pick that one. And then there's also times where like you think, well, we share this word, so we should have a shared green words as well. And so I feel pretty confident that this one is one of Jesse's picks, and I know that it's mine as well. So there's it's more of a percentage chance.
Yeah, and you're also having to juggle these things of like, well, should I give a 1-word clue and get rid of this thing that's risking an assassin word, or should I go for broke? It really rewards deep thinking in terms of strategy.
Also, like, it's interesting because, like, I said something like when we were either in our playthrough or in a different review that we did today, since we've done so much stuff today. You know, there was something we talked about, and like I was like, yeah, Codenames, like, because one of the things that I don't like about Codenames is that like people are like, oh, it's such a great game for non-gamers, and I've had so much bad luck with that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and not just me. Like, I remember a friend of mine that I was gaming with had introduced it and explained it, and I remember like afterwards he asked me, he was like they just weren't, and I wasn't even teaching it, so I'm saying other scenarios and me teaching the game, bringing it. And he was like, well, they just weren't getting it. Like, he was so confused. I was like, yeah, it happens. And like, I've had like, I can't tell you, like, I played with other people and they've been like, you played 10 games and it's like one word clue, and then they're like, how many words can I give 3 words? You know, like they just don't get. Or there's some.
You know what
things about the game
happens?
that they
What
really,
I find happens. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I do it.
It's similar. Is that they get it, but they're like, okay, I'll just give you the one word clue.
I
like,
knew you were gonna say that.
You can't keep doing that.
It completely invalidates the game.
It's hard. You gotta force yourself to. It's really a cool part of the game because you're like, all right, you must come up with a 2 clue, and they're like, I look at it and they're like, I can't think of anything. You're like, well, you're gonna have to try your best.
You could look at a list of words, and there's if you want somebody out of 20 words, you want somebody to guess one of them. There's almost certainly one word you can say that will immediately get them to guess it. And so if you just keep trading back 1 and 1 all day, it's not even a game anymore. It's just
but
it's
you
not
don't have
fun.
time in the duet.
And I remember
to
explaining
do it.
that to someone. I won't mention who they were, but some of my family members would be like, "You have to guess. You have to try to link 2 words," and they're like, "I just can't do it." I'm like, "Well, then this isn't a game anymore." I mean, I try to be nice, but it's just like I find like gamers Codenames fine, but if your spouse or your friend or your Zoom buddy or whatever, somebody you're Zooming with, like, or flying, like this, like Codenames Duet is like
now,
perfect.
You reminded me of something that we talked about on a different review, that there needs to be a word for this phenomena, this feeling. And I said there should be a German word, but there's the feeling of satisfaction, of enjoyment when you get on the same wavelength as someone.
Oh yeah.
And this game has that. It's like, you know, you're trying to sort of sync up the way you're thinking about things, and occasionally you get these moments where you're like, oh yeah, that was a really clever clue. And when we play it, we talk it through, and it's kind of cool. It's like a little mini detective thing. You're like talking through it. They wouldn't have said this. They would have said this. Let me try this. And it's tense. When you guess a word, you're like, I hope that's right. Should I? And then you find out.
Well, it's funny because you wouldn't think that this kind of a game would have memorable moments. Like, a lot of times when you think of memorable moments, you think of like, oh, like we're playing that social deduction game, and like we got to the end, and then like the person I like, what are you doing? And oh, I'm betraying you because like I'm the betrayer. And they're like, oh my god, you know, you just think of these big gamery moments, but like this game really does it. But they're more like, you know, like they're not like these big overblown things, but like they definitely make you remember. I mean, we just did a playthrough, and there's like 3 things that happen in the playthrough that make me.
And it's also, there's a joy out of sort of teasing the other person about a bad clue, right?
Oh, yeah.
We did that a lot, but actually that's pretty common in this game, and it's quite fun to be like, and we have these little like after action discussions like, well, why didn't you say this for this? Or that was a really good clue.
I love keeping a list.
You do love that, and it is very satisfying in this game.
And sometimes I'm like, oh, perfect. And I'm like, no, I can't say that because they'll get the assassin because it's too close to that.
That's kind of fun to talk about that
afterwards to do, and like to be like, what did you have for this? Oh, okay, yeah. And then kind of like,
and like you could say like, well, what could you have said for that? Occasionally the other person like, well, you could have said this.
And it's weird. There was a time we played a bunch of this and we never really died from the assassin, and I really hadn't seen any assassin deaths in other Codenames, but in this one, we got like we played like 5 games in a row where we died from the assassin, and then today our playthrough that's on there. Well, I won't tell you, but we definitely met with the assassin. So it's kind of a funny thing. Like it really is such an interesting part. I mean, if it wasn't, do you think this game would work if there was no assassin?
No, you need the assassin.
You have to have
otherwise, but it adds so much tension because every guess risks instant death. And in the last game we played, which we got right to the end, I won't tell you how it ended, but the tension was ramping up because you feel like we've made it this far. Let me not mess up and kill us.
Oh yeah, no, we didn't. So we didn't discuss this either. But the thing that this game has that's really cool, which you couldn't put in the other version, is the sudden death. So what happens is at the end of the game...
What do you mean you couldn't put that? Oh, the sudden death. Right, yeah.
So at the end of the game, you're out of turns, so nobody can... I can't give any more clues, Jesse can't give any more clues. But what happens is that whoever's turn it is, you go back and forth, right?
You can do it in any order you want, depending on
what you do is you both guess. I can say, it was Cleopatra green word for you, and then Jesse
Well,
was it.
you're not taking shots in the dark. Usually, you're thinking back about the previous clues that you didn't
get, and also like there's a real strategy there, because like when you get to like it's my last time to give clues, I look at the list and I think, what's possible? Like you start to look on the last couple turns, like what are the clues that I might have to give, because on sudden death you could get some of these, right? And there's a real interesting thing, and then you really can look at your word list and your shared words and stuff, and you can really try to figure out what the other person has. It's
absolutely true. In the beginning, you're like, let me just find an efficient clue to give. And as you get closer to the end, you start like bargaining with the devil. Like, okay, we're gonna have to make guesses. It's gonna have to be just long shots. What's the best? How can I best help us narrow down? Yeah.
So, and it's cool because there is a whole other idea too. I always discuss this, and I never really do it, but it's like, there's words that are on your list that you think like, that doesn't relate to any of my other words. I'm going to have to give a one-word clue. And I kind of like the idea of giving those like one-word clues in the beginning, so that when you give a three-word clue later in the game, it's way easier because there's a lot less words to be guessed on the board,
some logic
which
to
is
that.
kind of a cool thing, right? So I like that. Now, this one also has like a little campaigny type thing to it. I mean, I know there's no story. We didn't even cover the components and the theme and everything. That's all kind of out the window. It's not really. But I do actually really like the theme of like.
Well, I mean, if you just look at it really quickly, I mean, here are the basic. This is how Codenames works.
So there's
a little map that shows you where you would lay out these words in a grid.
But there's no little. Oh yeah, here they are.
You would lay this map out that would tell you where your assassin words are on the grid and where your green words are.
But I do like the way, I do like the idea that it's like you're trying to figure out these, your spy networks, actual code names, and you cover the thing up. I do like that you cover that up and stuff, and it's a very neat, clean way to see it, and I do think the theme works. Of course, it's not like anything like...
It's actually, I find that the Duet rules for how you cover up things is actually a bit unintuitive. It's confusing.
I did read the rules and
the play on paper one is much better. So here's the quote unquote campaign, and it's basically, as I remember it, it tells you the difference between how many turns you have and how many mistakes you're allowed, something like that. So you start out playing. I don't know the exact rules,
I do think it's cool, the idea that it's there, just because it gives you one little extra thing to do, where you can say, I'd like to go through it and I like to have that. Sorry, I really cut you off there.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's just, it's much less, as an idea, the idea of a campaign is always appealing, but it's in practice, I find it not very useful.
Yeah. But I do like the idea that that's there, and you know, it's kind of cool to like say, it's like, well, let's try one of these or whatever. Let's go in order or whatever. Just gives you a little tiny bit of extra life in the game. Sure. Although it really is hard to see how it would really make an impact in this particular thing. So I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
You can only keep one. You can either keep any one of the three. Codenames Duet, Codenames, or Codenames Pictures.
Yeah, well, I mean, I treat Codenames and Codenames Pictures as the same game. They're basically,
I'm saying all three.
I know, okay. So if I had to pick one, I'd pick Duet. I do like that better, but boy, do I love Codenames as a team game too. Like I consider them different, one team, but if I had to pick one, this is it.
Okay, what you got to throw one away?
I can't remember. I think I'd throw the picture one away. I like the word element of it.
So it's
what about you?
I'm the same. Well, the picture one I have zero interest in.
Oh.
I feel like the thing that makes Codenames interesting to me is like the words that have two meanings and things, and the. Yeah, I just have no interest in the pictures version.
Okay, that's a good reason.
And I do think that the Duet version has such a really cool, extra layers of nuance that really make me like it.
And the fact that you can play it online in a newspaper.
Whatever, I really like that. But I do, and it is a little biased because, playing with multiple people is not, like my gaming group is, I mostly game solo. I do some with my wife, I do some with you. So, there's it's not as, multiplayer games are not as attractive to me as lower player counts.
But Codenames is a great team game. I mean, it is fun to be on the team.
And it's a very uncrowded genre, right? Like, team games are very, very light. They're very sparse. So I know exactly, are we ready to move into our...
You ready to rate it?
Why
I think it's time to rate it.
Sure. I know what your rating is, by the way.
Usually the way these reviews and top tens go is I just give Craig the tiniest clue and he guesses what my answer is. So
it's mostly when you say When the first 12 reviews we did or whatever, you said your rating, and I was like, really? I was like, I did the spit take every time, but this time I know for sure.
Yeah. All right. What's my rating?
It's a 10.
Yeah, this is a 10 for me.
Yeah. I'm gonna rate it a 9. I think it's incredible. Like I really.
That's pretty high for you. You don't often rate games 9.
I do. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's.
Yeah, I love everything about it, and I love the fact that you can get into rich discussions even after any game where afterwards we're talking for 20 minutes about the game we just played, and it's quick, right?
That's nice, we didn't normally. I really always talk about game length versus decision making.
We didn't really talk about this, but boy, this is
such a quick.
Yeah.
I mean, you could play in 30 minutes. You could play a game, right? I mean, of course, if you lose,
and you're engaged at every moment.
Every moment of it, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's fun being the guesser, and it's fun giving the clues.
I should say 9.5.
9.5. You're ready to change it? 9. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Maybe even 10.
So what? So 9 point. You're ready to give it 10. I have never heard Greg give it 10.
Yeah, because yes, you have. There's my top 10 list.
Yeah,
all
okay.
10s.
Whoa, your top 10 list is all 10s? I didn't know that.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, if it's your top 10 games of all time, why would there? Of course, it'd be 10. If you've played 500 board games and here's your top 10, why would they not all be 10s?
I don't think mine were all 10s.
Yeah,
but I think
you just put random stuff on some of your
list.
That's
true.
Ridiculous. And you left some that you rated 10s off your list.
That's right, I did.
Because you wanted to win the game of will Greg be able to guess my top 10.
No, I did. All right, so I rated this an easy 10. You rated a 9.5. 9.5.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then we want to do a little. We're like no real tangents and rabbit holes. This is the end of the night. This is like. I've been hanging out for 12 hours
we
filming
played this
and
game.
gaming.
If you watch, this is most of the games we review, right? I would say you don't need to watch the playthrough if you're just interested in a review or whatever. But if you watch our playthrough, you'll hear us talk while we're playing. You'll see what we like about it, right? Yeah. Like a lot of games, if you watch the playthrough, you'll just see a playthrough. This one, if you watch the playthrough, you'll get this. You'll see why we. Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't like those 3 particular games. I didn't feel like I had a lot of exciting ways to. But the
last one was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting.
The last one was pretty cool. And we had some good discussions.
Games that are like this, well, one thing I would
say
is that...
Codenames.
Well, obviously Codenames.
I don't say it like that. I mean...
it's very... If you like Ticket to Ride, try Ticket to Ride Markland. You might like that. If you like Axis and Allies Pacific, why not try Axis and Allies Europe? I would say what really strikes me about this game is that it is insanely singular, right? There's no, I mean, what else are you going to play that's going to be like this, that's a 2-player game that's like in that way? So, of course, Codenames has, the team-based game is a lot easier to find similar games for. I mean, Crosstalk, I find is an awesome team game that has a really similar feel because you are giving clues, you have a hidden clue to give your team and then a clue that you give everybody. And so it does lend itself to that kind of thing where you might be trying to give clues that have a double meaning that only relate to your clue. So it's much thinkier than just like a word game, a vocabulary type game would be. So I find that to be...
Crosstalk's a very cool game. You know what I thought of? I thought of another one that's very recent. Masterword.
I haven't played it.
Brand new. It is a little similar.
You played it?
I haven't played it yet, but I understand it's cooperative, and you're sort of giving clues to point. It's almost like a little mastermind-ish. What?
That's kind of interesting. It's like you haven't even brought this up yet.
Yeah, I just thought of it now. I mean, we haven't played it. We'll have to check it out. It's not really meant for 2 players though.
Oh, and I'd like to mention some other games that are like this. I've never played them, but I'm just guessing.
Well, I'm not allowed to talk about it because I haven't played it. Greg has a whole list of secret hidden rules about the when I talk about related games. Anytime related games come up, Greg's got he's on a short leash. Yeah. He's ready to bite. Anytime I say a game, I gotta watch out. Yeah. But it hasn't stopped me.
But I'm curious to try it now, though. So I guess it did work. It was a good mention because it's actually got me interested.
Yeah, I am curious to try Master. Any other? I'm trying to think. I can't think of any other.
Yeah, because it is
Just
so.
One is a word game that's cooperative, but it doesn't feel anything like this, does it?
No, not a little.
Yeah.
But I think Crosstalk is one of the closest things that shares that ingenuity to.
I think Masterword is.
But the reason I really like this version of it is because it's completely unique in terms of being able to make it co-op this way. It kind of makes me think of like how Orleans Invasion is like making a game that's not normally.
I agree. It's shockingly good how they turned this into a co-op game.
So this kind of is also part of our theme of like, does it co-op, which is like ways of taking games that you enjoy that are competitive and making them co-op, and it's always very exciting to see.
You're going to give out this idea of does it co-op to someone else. I hope we can actually make some episodes of it before that happens.
Yeah, good luck. Anything else?
No, I think that does it. I mean, give it a try. Right? You didn't tell me if Jill likes it.
Yeah, she enjoys it quite a bit. Yeah, she loves Codenames actually, so she really enjoyed Codenames Duet as well. Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the review. Greg, thanks for playing this with me. It's one of my favorite games to play with you. And you were just waiting for me to say thanks for, but it's not going to happen.
I wanted to hear it. I was like,
yeah, no, it's not
ready to pounce. I was on deck.
If you enjoy these reviews and videos, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. And we'll see you next time. Anything else to say about this?
Nada.
No, there you go.
I do want to needle you a little bit about our competition in Codenames, but that's for if you watch the.
What competition in Codenames?
Yeah, what they would have who they would have sided with.
Oh
team
watch
Jesse or Team
watch
Greg.
the playthrough. There's some arguments. We need whoever's team you support.
Spicy. 12 hours a game and you starts getting spicy. All right. Well, thanks for joining.
Yeah. See you guys.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah. See you guys. Oh, you're coming up with your own little thing there. Okay.
Let's get put my twist
I
on
notice you sometimes you go off screen.
Like this?
Yeah.
It's because, you know why? It's because we're zoomed in.
We are zoomed in more, yeah.
So I'm off the screen.
Yeah, that was it.
It should be like, and bring on something that's like not on. And I did it again, this thing, I went like,